Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Spotlightus Obscura. I thought I'd make a series of videos just to show off some of these indie games that I've been playing recently, considering how good they are and how little marketing and attention they get. Thought I'd throw together just a bunch of short previews, maybe 5 or 6 minutes at most, just to show a little bit of what the game's like and all of the main features in the game. Give a little rundown of the technology behind the game if that's called for. And I'd also like to give ad-libbing a go for once, because one of the worst things when I go back to watch the Final Fantasy XIV review is it sounds so stiff and the humor is awful, which is basically me in real life. But you know, with ad-libbing it's a bit more naturalistic. Hopefully I'd get the point across a bit easier just talking into this microphone. But anyway, on to the game. This is Binding of Isaac. This is a top-down Zelda-like, not roguelike, action game that released about 2 years ago on Steam. I recently picked it up on the Steam summer sale. In fact, I spent about $30 on heaps and heaps of games that I just missed out, and that's pretty much the whole reason behind these preview videos, because I wanted to show them off. They're all really, really good. And so, as I said before, the game's a Zelda-like. It plays very similarly to the older Zelda games, just like the original Legend of Zelda and The Link to the Past, except it puts a little bit of a bullet hell spin on it. You still have your main weapon, sub-weapons you can pick up, and you can pick up permanent buffs to your damage and armor, that kind of thing. But there's no inventory, so you can't really retain any of the items you pick up. You can have one thing in your queue slot, but that's it. Isaac himself is limited only to ranged attacks, but enemies can use ranged attacks as well as just running into you. That does damage to you as well. This makes the game extremely difficult, and if there are a large amount of enemies on screen, then it can turn into what is basically a bullet hell game. There's a huge amount of variety in the items that you can pick up, from just simple stuff like bombs inside of rocks to a coat hanger that Isaac sticks inside his skull to give him more damage. A lot of the pickups have some very adverse effects as well. Like say, ingesting a pill may either make you fart bombs for a few seconds, or in the case of the start of my playthrough, it could simply do nothing but make Isaac look like a typical everyday Australian. Now let's talk a little bit about the premise of the game, because much can be said of the premise of the game. As you could probably tell from the title, it's based off the Old Testament story of Abraham bringing his son Isaac to an altar at the top of a mountain to be sacrificed to God, either willingly or unwillingly, depending on the text and your interpretation. Now, the game puts a rather morbid and disturbing twist on the tale. Instead, it's based in modern times, and it's Isaac's mother who is hearing voices who may or may not be God. It's rather not so subtly implied that she is probably insane, and is told instead by God that he is sinful and that she must kill him. So Isaac's clothes fly off, and he ends up in the basement, where he now has to contend with all these monsters and things on his way down to the bottom level, which I'm assuming is going to be a fight against his mother. I haven't even made it down to what I'm assuming is the end of the first chapter, because the game's so goddamn difficult. Now the art style. As you can see, it is suitably disgusting, though it doesn't really quite have the same impact unless you're playing it. The first time I played Binding of Isaac after I bought it, it was 40 minutes before I stopped playing. And for the rest of the day, I just felt so fucking sick. Ugh, just rotten to my absolute core. Everything is screwed and twisted. Isaac, when Isaac attacks, he's crying. He's shooting tears at his enemies. There are feces all over the ground. There's blood lining the wall. The enemies are of a really, really fucked up variety. I can think of a few quite easily. Probably the most memorable because it comes up most often, and the one that I had a bit of a difficult time getting over was there are other kids in the basement, but their heads are all bloated because they've got flies growing inside their heads, but they're still alive. And when you attack them, they run away. They run away and their eyes well up and they're crying. One of the bosses, Gemini, is very clearly a fetus attached to a placenta, but I have no idea which one is the fetus and which one is the placenta. The art isn't just disgusting on a visual level, because that would be just too easy. It's extremely easy to just draw something on a piece of paper that looks rotten and wrong and all zombie-like. But the things in this game are also disgusting on a conceptual level. Like, if you think of some of these things, these monsters actually existing, or what could have happened to them to have possibly made them exist in that state, things start to get pretty fucked up. Now, the soundtrack. This is a bit of a special case in the game because the sounds themselves, all the sound effects are, they're beautiful. They're absolutely fucking disgusting and make me feel sick. But the soundtrack, I feel, unless you've played the game for several hours and you've become familiar with all the nasty, rotten things that you can see in the game, until then, it's really ill-fitting. It's really arcadey and uppity, and it gets you going. But you know, it does sound good. It would sound good if it was on its own. Well, that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure that I covered most of what the game and its core has to offer. As I said, I haven't completed it yet. I haven't seen all the content. I'm still missing one character. But if you feel I missed something important, just let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer your question. Alright, well that was it. I hope you enjoyed the first episode. There's still a lot more to come. As I said, I bought a lot of games on that Steam summer sale, and there are some serious standouts as well. Right, I shall see you on the next episode of Spotlightus Obscura.